Well, hello, Ruckus makers. I am here today with Dr. CJ Lowery, who is the Assistant Superintendent in Rockport, Fulton, Texas. He has a background with inner city and rural Title I schools as a teacher and principal. CJ believes that education is not a job, it's a mission field. This mission field requires strong relationships, data, and collaboration for success. It's not who you know, but who you were good to, which we'll talk about right at the end of the show, I think. So, Dr. Lowery, welcome to the podcast.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. Really excited.
Yeah, this when we got to chatting, the other day, I'm like, all right, CJ has to be on the podcast. He's a true ruckus maker, and so we are thrilled to have you here. And I want to bring you back in time. I think this might be your first teaching job, but correct me if I'm wrong. And all of a sudden, you experience this very interesting problem. You're getting more kids and more kids and more kids in your class until your colleague, if I remember correctly, they don't have any kids to teach, right? So correct me where I'm wrong and tell us that story, please.
Yeah. So first year teaching at an alternative campus and really trying to get kids through state testing. And, it's funny, I was a alternative cert teacher. So shout out to all you alt cert people. And it was the only job offer I got was to teach at this alt cert campus. And, throughout the first semester, I just kept noticing that my classes were getting larger and the other teacher was getting smaller. Right. And you're sitting here thinking what's going on? Like, are you giving me all the bad kids? Are they all bad? Are they all good? And you're taking away from her. What's going on? So you go and you ask your leadership, hey, what's going on? And they answer, well, you're the one doing all the great work and the kids are being more successful for you. And of course, my answer back was, well, she makes more money than me and she gets the department head stipend and I'm 22. What's going on here? Sure. So maybe that was my first time to cause a ruckus, was to challenge that there with them.
Yeah. And, I think that's a good point to make, right? That is causing a ruckus and making a ruckus because you're saying, hey, I'm getting rewarded with students because I'm more effective as a teacher. But there's something misaligned here, which is this person who has no students now is the department chair and is making more money, right? So help me reconcile that. And I would call that a crucial conversation, right? So when you brought that up with the principal at the time, how'd that go and what was the outcome?
Yeah. So, I think, a lot of people always say, your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. And so I think while I sit here and say that I'm a ruckus maker, each one of my prior bosses or colleagues would probably say, oh yeah, he is. He's definitely that. And I've had to have those tough conversations on both ends. Right. So, you have that crucial conversation and I walk in with my boss and I was just, at the time he was quite a bit older than me. And I think saw talent in me that he was hoping to cultivate and very much did. But at the time I was, I'm doing all the work and the compensation isn't even close. We're teachers, but so I don't need to get rich, but it'd be nice to be compensated equally to my colleague. And so he did. I brought it up and I showed him, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how it kind of makes me feel. And he said, you're right. And there were some changes made at the semester. Obviously, when we talk department head money, it's, I think it was like $2,000 for a whole year. So when it changed the semester, I got $1,000. But in teacher times and at age 22, man, that's a lot of money.
That's right. All right, cool. So I think this also taught you a leadership lesson as you're having that crucial conversation with your principal, and something that served you in the future years, right? When you were listening to others bring you, different challenges that they were having or things that, that they were working through. So what was that lesson that you learned by bringing up this discrepancy in pay back then as a first year teacher?
Yeah. So I think the first thing is, that was the first moment that I was really big on pay for performance. Not so much that there should be a huge discrepancy, but you obviously see it across all business world that, the harder you work, oftentimes the better you get compensated. Obviously we could always find things outliers, right? Which we'll talk about that book later. But, I think what it taught me there was, first off, I want to encourage my young staff members, just like my boss at that point did, And I had a mentor at the time that saw the same thing. And so she was the one that kind of encouraged me, okay, go have this tough conversation. And you have to fight for yourself, and you have to make sure that you're willing to have those tough conversations in terms of, if you want what you feel like you deserve, you've got to step up and have that tough conversation, even though it can be quite difficult. And so she encouraged me there. And then when I came in, he was very understanding, and he listened to both of my, to my side of things. Obviously he didn't give me an answer right then. He said, well, let me go evaluate this. Let me look into this a little bit more. And after he did, he came back, set some time, and he told me where I was right. He told me where there were areas that maybe his hands were tied and he couldn't really do anything. But here's what the things that he could do. And so I think, to me, that's what I take on now is I try to encourage people to be willing to come and have tough conversations with me. If they see something that I don't see, you might call it a leadership gap. What do I not see? Come have a conversation with me. Worst I could say is no, and you're right back where you were, right? And but I think usually good leaders want to find some common ground to say, hey, you're seeing something I didn't see, because either I have a blinder or a gap somewhere that now I can evaluate that and hopefully make it better for you, and in this case, the system and the children.
Yeah, I think effective leaders want those feedback loops, right? There's nothing worse than continuing to do some kind of behavior that's causing a negative result, and you're completely unaware of what that is, right? And so to have those feedback loops, to be able to understand, what exactly is going on, to help me see what I don't see, right? That's a huge value. So you're certainly a ruckus maker. You're challenging the idea, okay, maybe age shouldn't be the determining factor, right, for what a teacher makes. Now the tension, though, is, with the years of experience, there's some honor and respect, I think, due to veteran faculty members. They've put in the time, and if they've been effective too, they have a lot of wisdom to share with others. I guess if they've been ineffective, they're a great anti-example of what not to become. So there might be value. You could argue that there as well. But the tension also is you have up and coming teachers, right, new to the field, who are absolutely brilliant, but you're worried, like, will they outshine, the veterans and that kind of thing. So how do you embrace that tension? And what would you say to the ruckus maker listening right now?
Yeah. So again, you have to be willing to walk in and have that tough conversation, because you're right. It's not easy. It's not easy to tell a teacher that has, 25, 30 years experience that, hey, this rookie's going to make more money than you. Or let's say this 5-year teacher, teacher within 5 years is going to potentially be making more than you. And you've really put in 30 years cultivating children's lives. And I'm sure in many cases, making a really positive impact, and I think you have to cultivate that in terms of, well, if you believe that you're still one of the best teachers 30 years in, then this is also going to help you, right? And I got to just have this conversation with some of the teachers in our district and they said, well, I don't want to worry about this new teacher incentive allotment in Texas. And, what is it going to do for me? I'm retiring next year. Well, you might be making $65,000, $70,000 for math purposes. Let's say you're making 75, and you are one of these top performing teachers in our district. You would get another $25,000. It'd be a one-time check that you get. And that also would increase your retirement. So you get a one-time check worth about 33% of your salary, and you increase your retirement for 33%. Wow. If you truly believe that you're one of these top. Now, if you're not, hey, it's just what's best for kids. And we all agree that there's a teacher shortage because people are seeing that they can go make more money in other fields, or sometimes even in educational support fields. It's not even that you left education as a whole. So unless we get these salaries to where they can compete, your grandkids need a teacher. And so we've got to get them somewhere. And so that's kind of how I frame that with our teachers. And unfortunately, some people are going to growl and not like it. And that's how I know that I'm kind of doing things right, is that there are people that are still a little bit frustrated. Otherwise, you're probably not pushing the envelope hard enough.
Yeah, if everybody's super happy, or you don't have some people grumbling in the staff, then you're certainly not challenging them to grow, right? Like, let's face it. I mean, I'll invest good money in health and fitness, right? and I will complain the entire workout. But the reason I'm complaining is because it's hard and it's pushing me to be stronger. And then I like the results, right? But I don't, I do complain because it hurts.
So, and that's a great example, right? Because it hurts more in the beginning. But as you get into it, your body's not as sore and you feel better, and you have more energy and you're able to do other things in your life that you want to. So I think that's a really good analogy there to utilize.
Yeah, pleasure. So it sounds like I didn't get this in the intro call, so I'm sorry if I missed it, but it sounds like your district's actually doing some creative things around teacher compensation. And what I heard is a one-time check. I heard it goes into retirement, and then that's actually paying out for quite a while. So what a bonus there. But can you explain some of these creative things you're doing?
Yeah. So honestly, that's coming from Texas. Texas Education Agency is pushing this out. And, a lot of people say, well, they pushed it out too early. There's things wrong with it. Well, absolutely. We had to get it out there. If we wait until the system's perfect before testing it, it's never going to happen, and it won't be perfect. But, it's one of those things. So Texas, they have set aside money to basically give performance-based pay in 3 different tiers to the top 30% of teachers every year across the state of Texas. If you earn the money, it lasts 5 years. So if I do earn, let's say $15,000 bonus, that $15,000 bonus, I get that every year for 5 years. And not only do I get that check, but it also goes into the pension, which increases my retirement down the way. And, we talk to teachers right now and you say, hey, you're getting a 1% to 2% pay increase every year, but inflation's 10% right now. So, how are you going to make up that ground and live, what you would hope is 20 to 25, maybe even 30 years past retirement in the ages that we're living in. So, really that's a shout out to Texas and some of the things that lawmakers are doing. And, as educators, we're always frustrated with lawmakers, and that's just how it goes. But I think this is one thing that is absolutely moving the right direction is the teacher pay for performance. So at least those top teachers are coming to the profession and hopefully staying.
Right. In the leadership lesson for me too, I want to point out for ruckus makers, perfect can be the enemy of great, and so if you're always, slowing things down in terms of innovation and evolving, and education's a space that needs to evolve at a quicker pace. If you're waiting for perfect, then you never ship, you never execute the idea because you're afraid of failure because it's not perfect. Good enough is an idea, a concept that I think, ruckus makers should really adopt, because once you put it out there and then the market tells you, the market being the school community for principals, you're going to get that feedback, and then you can always make the plan better. But if you were waiting to have it be perfect, then you never get the plan out there, and that stifles creativity and innovation. Anything I see you smiling, so I'm wondering if there's something you want to add to that.
No, I mean, I 100% agree. I think, and here's what I'd add to this, and this is kind of in some of my other thoughts in general, is teachers by nature are risk averse. Right. And I think as a field, we have a lot of that, right? Most teachers within their retirement system have some type of pension that's very safe. The likelihood of getting fired is very unlikely within our education system. You love your days off. So they like a lot of consistency. So anytime you have something, teachers kind of want it to be perfect. And as a leader, you get to take the heat when you roll out something that's not, which is going to be pretty much everything. We're not going to roll out a perfect system. If we did, everyone would be emulating it, but no one's called us yet and said, hey, we want to emulate that. There's perfect pieces. And so I think that's one thing to keep in mind as a leader, specifically in education, is the people that you are leading tend to be more risk averse. So we have to keep that in mind first as we lead them and support them, but 2, that we have to push them through wanting perfection, just like a lesson plan or, a test. Well, not all my kids passed. Well, God, 90% of them did. And the other kids that didn't grew. Right. And so it's tough when you work in a field full of people that care so much, but also are risk adverse. That's the thing you have to keep in mind as that leader.
Absolutely. I remember when I first got into DISC surveys, and I'm no longer utilizing them all the time with leaders I support, but I'll never forget that the majority of principals and APs fall in the more assertive, D&I sort of area of the disc. And their staff, though, the majority of people are in the S and the C, right? Because they want that consistency, that stability, the tradition, and that kind of thing, which can sometimes, very much frustrate a leader and certainly frustrate a ruckus maker. So, like I said, many, many times, you're a ruckus maker, CJ, and I think you've had big goals for yourself as you've grown in your leadership. And I remember you telling me a story about your mom and telling her about next steps. She gave you some advice, right? What was that advice that she shared with you?
Yeah. So, I think I luckily have had a lot of people in my life that encouraged me. And one of those is absolutely my mom. To go do big things and invest in people and chase my dreams. But my mom, when I was 24 years old. So talk about a ruckus maker, right? 24 years old. And I convinced this school to hire me as an assistant principal at a middle school, of which I don't even know that we had a teacher on the campus younger than me at the time. And so, I walk in and my britches are pretty big and my chest is pretty proud, I'm excited. And, so I'm 24 and luckily I turned 25 right before we actually bring teachers back. And, so I guess that sounds a little bit better, but totally. I go through this year and we show success, and we do a lot of really good things. And I remember, and I don't remember exactly when the conversation happened, but I told my mom, I'm going to do great things. And she was like, well, why? And I said, because I know so many people. You don't even know, Mom, all these powerful people I'm meeting, and I'm getting in the room with them. And, of course, Mom, with their wisdom, she says, CJ, who you know is not nearly as important. She said, the powerful part is who you're good to. And so, that really rang a bell to me. And it's something, if you ever see emails from me or anything like that, I try to keep it on my background that it's not who you know and it's who you are good to. And so as leaders, I think we can sometimes get caught up in shaking the right hand, knowing that, as a leader, sometimes there are political games, unfortunately, that we have to be aware of. Hopefully you're choosing not to play them, but you're being aware of them. But it's more powerful in who we're good to and who we take care of. And that kind of goes back to, it's not always what you reap, what you sow. It's what you sow, what you reap, and keeping that in mind.
Yeah. I think, it's so, this goes back to sort of the blind spots and having feedback loops, but I'm really indebted to my friend Mitch. So shout out to Mitch and shout out to your mom too, who taught you this really powerful lesson. It's not who you know, right? It's how you treat them. I don't know how we got on this topic, but I was curious about phrases, that I guess tell people frequently and that kind of thing, because I'm having this culture wall built. And the shorter version of the story is there's going to be some cool art with these phrases, things that keep me motivated, and focused on my why and how I serve and all this stuff. And what he reflected back to me, he said, you say this all the time, Danny, you can never go wrong treating people right. And so I think it's in the similar sense, right? It's just like, yes, how do you serve? How do you build relationships and take care of people? That is the foundation of creating a great organization, great leadership, culture and all that kind of stuff. So Mama CJ is very smart. She knows what she's talking about for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's bring her back to the conversation too, because I think she was your coach, right? For, the rest of the world calls it football. We call it soccer.
That's right.
It's a sport we both love. And here you are at 13, I think, playing in the state tournament. Some pretty cool stuff happened. So can you tell us about that moment?
Okay. So let's be very clear. I never got to play in a state tournament. This was just kind of so I grew up in a small town. Soccer was not something that really went beyond, whatever you would consider little league in the soccer world. And so we were maybe 2 years beyond that. And my mom was coaching us and we finally made it to at least what we considered a big time tournament, in a town that was, bigger than ours significantly. And, we didn't really have as much talent as these other teams. We didn't have the money, they're walking in matching bags and we're matching jerseys and hopefully we all had black shorts and, socks on. And so we walk in very much overmatched and we had enough talent on our team that, hey, our top 4 or 5 kids were as good as their top 10 kids. So, right. So what do we think? Okay, well, let's play defense. We have a good goalie. We play defense. We kind of had some speed back there. So my mom, who is the coach, who, by the way, knew very minimal about soccer, and she would tell you that herself. But, you know, she knew enough about leadership and putting people in positions to win that she could do that. So we played defense, and we make it to this 3rd place game. And luckily, we get into the 3rd place game, and we tell my mom, hey, put all the best players back in defense. We'll take them to a shootout and see if we can win there, right? And, of course, you know, a bunch of 13-year-olds huddled up thinking they make this master plan. It works, and I don't know why. Right? It works. And we get into the shootout. It's 0-0. And, you know, you get your 5 shooters, and my mom says, well, who are our shooters? And I remember this message, and I raised my hand and was like, Mom, I'll go last. I want the last shot. And we end up winning. I get to hit the game-winning shot. You know, I don't know. You know, it's kind of one of those moments in your life that a blur. But later that night or the next day, I remember my mom, we were sitting down at dinner, and she goes, CJ, what made you want to choose this? And, of course, you know, wisdom of older people, they just want me to reflect on why I did. They know.
Yeah.
And I remember telling her, Mom, it's because I felt like I could handle the pressure of taking it. It wasn't that I was the most talented. It wasn't that I was a better shooter. Honestly, I probably wasn't. But I remember just thinking, like, that's going to be a stressful situation. And I think that that's my gift, is to be able to handle the situation, not so much that I'm smarter or more talented. And that's what I try to make clear in leadership is I can handle the pressure. I'm not smarter. I'm not more talented. And so I remember her asking me that. And I think that's just kind of been a story in my life where, you know, where are your talents? And now I know my talent is handling pressure and stressful situations. Again, there are so many people more intelligent than me. But sometimes I feel like that's my talent. And I think that's, as a leader, you've got to understand what is your strength. So then I surround myself with people that are more intelligent than me. And I tell them, hey, I'll take all the pressure and the heat. You just give me your brain and I'll take on the rest. So.
Right. Well, I think, you know, that's certainly something to highlight from the story, is to do the hard work to identify what your zone of genius or superpower is, and then be disciplined enough to play 90% to 100% of your time in that area, and get people around you that can take care of the things where you're not a zone of genius or superpower. And so I really appreciate that part of the story for sure. I actually know why your tactic worked, which I'm going to tell you about in a second. But before that, I want to know, so that's a natural gift for you, right? That's your superpower. But are there things that you do these days that help you with handling the pressure, right? So, because you have the gift, but then you can make it you can amplify it, right? By doing different things. And I'm just curious if there's anything you're doing to amplify that superpower.
Absolutely. So I think, you know, one of the big things that I do, I try to stay very routine on my workouts. And I kind of make that my me time. You know, if I'm going to go run with a friend or something of that nature, I'm happy to go do that. But then I'm going to go lift weights by myself or something of that nature. So I think one of the big things is to stay consistent there. I wouldn't say I eat like super healthy, but I don't eat super bad. So I try to, you know, go with kind of the 80-20 rule. So,
sure,
you know, on a Sunday, I call them kind of my lazy Sunday. If I want to have some ice cream, like I allow myself to have some ice cream. But I do try to eat, you know, a salad or a chicken or something of that. You know, most dinners, I try to eat a piece of fish once a week. So I think some of those things to stay consistent. I definitely I try to work on compartmentalizing. Although that's not my best, I'm pretty much always at work. I'm better at keeping personal away from work than I am work away from personal, which is always something I'm working on. But I would say the biggest thing is to stay consistent in my workouts. I like to run, so I try to schedule like half marathon races. So, you know, every 6 months or so. And I've got a good mentor of mine, Dr. Flores. He's a VP at a university up in North Texas. And So he's one of those that, he'll run one of those races with me a year. I've got some good friends that run some races with me. And so I think that's one of the big things. I try to make sure that I do my study time. So I don't know where everyone else is, but at least my study time is to try to get into the Bible a little bit, even if it's just to listen to a preacher that's in a different state or a different city, preach a little bit to bring my center back to, again, it's not a job, it's mission work, and it's not supposed to be easy. And so I think that really helps me remember on those hard days that I chose to do mission work. I didn't just choose to do a job. And so I think hearing our pastors do that helps as well.
Yeah, for sure. You might not be aware of it, but I have a tool called the Ruckus Maker Mindset Tool. And it has 5 components: eating, sleeping, unplugging, meditating, and what am I thinking of? Eating, sleep, moving, which would be fitness. So you've, in my view, talked about 3 of those, right? Because you talked about eating well, you talked about moving a lot in terms of your fitness routine, and then the meditation could be sort of the spiritual, but it's connecting, with something that's hopefully bigger than you, right? And everybody has a different way of doing that, and appreciate you sharing yours. So very, very cool. Thank you for answering that. So here's why the tactic worked for you. Okay. Because it worked for me when I was coaching 8th graders in basketball, and that's a similar age, right? It's because sport at that level, you could draw up the craziest idea and it could work because it just blows up the minds of a young teenager, I think.
Yeah.
That's my assertion. So the story, and it's a short story, we're playing the number 1 team in the state of Illinois in our region. They're undefeated, like 20-0 or something. They come to Franklin Middle School. This is a big game, high stakes. People's legacies are on the line here. And essentially, this kid who was so good, I decided I'm going to put 3 defenders on him, and just have behind those 3 defenders a vertical line zone, which is basically like a 1-3-1 defense, the middle and the back guy. And I was thinking that this guy's so selfish, the star player, he wouldn't pass the ball and try to play through 3 different players. And anyways, this defense absolutely 100% worked, and we ended up winning the game. So the kid wouldn't pass the ball, and anyways, we totally won. So I see the story might have kicked you out, so you'll have to pop back. Like, the story was awesome, but it was,
dude, I love that story. But
okay.
but it's true, and it's true, and
yeah.
And I think it's as much about like some crazy story, but like they're willing to believe it.
Yeah, I guess it's true too, right? The team believed like this could work.
Yeah, and I think as adults, we get to the point where we're not willing to believe it because we have set experience, and it's having the mind and the heart of a child where it's like, man, I wish I could believe in different things that maybe adults have us believe in that we find out later don't exist, right?
Yeah.
But kids believe it, and then they're willing to go do it, and that's why kids, sometimes as adults, I'm like, golly, like, give me someone that can believe in this. And the day that you don't believe it anymore, like, you can't be on my team because we're going to go do something crazy on my team, and I need you to believe it. Right.
Yeah. I think that's a brilliant point. I'm really glad that you reflected that back, because that is the essence of the story. Cool. Well, I'm going to share some messages here from our sponsors. When we get back, like, here's why people want to stick around. First, you're going to answer, of course, all the questions I end every show with, but we're also going to ask CJ, like, why we should actually find bartenders who are ready to be a teacher. Okay. So
yeah.
Today's show is sponsored by the Certificate of School Management and Leadership. Learn how to successfully navigate change, shape your school's success, and empower your team at Harvard. This online professional development fits your schedule. Courses include leading change, leading school strategy and innovation, leading people, and leading learning. You can apply today at betterleadersbetterschools.com/Harvard. The BLBS podcast is also brought to you by TeachFX. because research shows that the more students speak in class, the more they learn and the better they perform. So TeachFX has helped hundreds of schools increase their student engagement by visualizing for teachers what portions of class are teacher talk versus student talk. Learn more at teachfx.com. And finally, today's show is also proudly sponsored by Organized Binder, a program which gives students daily exposure to goal setting, reflective learning, time and task management, study strategies, organizational skills, and more. Organized Binder's color-coded system is implemented by the teacher through parallel process with students, helping them create a predictable and dependable classroom routine. Learn more and improve your students' executive functioning at organizedbinder.com. And we are back with Dr. CJ Lowery, the Assistant Superintendent in Rockport, Fulton, Texas. And he has a for sure ruckus maker idea that we should find teachers that are bartenders, right? And waiters and waitresses. I know where this is going to go, but tell us why you have that assertion.
So, I think building culture is right. It's hiring the right people. And I think in education, we're in the people business, right? And I think sometimes when we hire for a skill set that is really specific to teaching and learning, curriculum and instruction, designing good lessons. But we would all agree that we're in the people business, right? And so to me, who's better at the people business than bartenders, right? And waiters and waitresses who put up with grouchy people all the time. But I think what they do that is so powerful is they are so good at connecting or finding a way to connect with anyone and everyone, mainly because money's on the line for them, right? If they're waiting your table and they find a way to connect with you, or serving you a drink and they find a way to connect with you, you're more willing to buy a second one or give a better tip. And so they're literally financially compensated based on how well they connect with you. And so why not pull those people into education and say, hey, you would be a great teacher because I'm going to give you these 22 to 150 kids that I need you to connect with. Oh, by the way, in Texas, we're going to compensate you based on how well you connect with them and then how well they do in the classroom performance-wise, of which we know if you connect well and they like you, right? Rita Pearson, kids don't work for kids that they don't, or adults that they don't like, right? Yeah. And so I think that it's just kind of a crazy thought. So when I interview, I absolutely try to look for ways that people can connect with others. Although I don't straight up ask, hey, were you a bartender? I do look for that on resumes. And anytime I'm out eating dinner, I often look for people and I will ask them, hey, have you ever thought about being a teacher? And it worked once and twice. And then I ended up having to leave that position, but for a promotion. But I've gotten 2 people in and they were both very successful. And one's probably going to be an assistant principal here in the next year. And he was managing a very large bar in Dallas, Texas, when I first met him.
How about that? Well, it goes back to the quote, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so I think one through line throughout this whole conversation has been just the importance of relationships and how that is the foundational culture. So, all right, CJ, the last questions I ask all the guests, what message would you put on all school marquees around the world if you could do so for a single day?
Yeah, so I've got like 2. So one is what I want the parents to see. One I want the students to see. Okay. So the message is, parents, quit blaming schools for your students' bad habits. We love working with students, but we need your support, not your blame. So that's my message to parents. And then on the other one, students, your story isn't the reason you can't succeed. It's the reason you must.
Awesome. And Angel, who's watching with us live on Facebook, he says he loves it. So that's brilliant. Wonderful. All right. And now you're building your dream school, CJ. So I don't know if you've had the opportunity to do this in real life, but this is a thought experiment. So with this dream school, you're not limited by any resources. Your only limitation is your imagination. So in building this dream school, what would be your 3 guiding principles?
I think as we look at what those guiding principles are, it's you're in the people's business. And I would only hire people that I know are in it for the people and the kids. And so, my first thing that I would do in a school is doesn't cost any money to go get all those best people that really want to invest in kids. And so obviously in my 15 years of experience, I've got a list of people that I would bring in. Within it, I would also try to alter how we do grade cohorts. I would love to look at it based on age and academic success instead of the singular cutoff dates of whatever it is, September 1st or August 15th, whatever that date is. And I would have one rule. I would like to make teachers telling kids not to be teachers a fireable offense immediately, because I feel like we kill our own profession. And so you should not be telling kids not to be teachers and then be surprised that we don't have any teachers.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. So it always surprised me, and I saw on Twitter the other day too, like basically like convince me, it's a current teacher. Like if I was going to do it over, like why I should be a teacher. And it wasn't hard for me. I rattled off like 7 things right away, but I loved it, and I'm very lucky because I got pushed into leadership. Somebody called out the gifts that they saw in me. And so I'm very fortunate to get to talk to you today and do what I do now. But I love being in the classroom. Like I had no desire to ever leave, right? And it wasn't until Dre, said, "Hey, I see this leadership in you and I want you on my team," that I left the classroom. But it's an awesome job, and I would go back. I fully believe right now that I'm still a teacher. My classroom's just changed and my students just look a little bit older and a little bit hairier than what my old students used to look like. So
absolutely.
Cool. Well, we covered a lot of ground today, CJ, of everything we talked about. What's the one thing you want a ruckus maker to remember?
So I think in order to be a ruckus maker, you have to remember that if you want to make everyone happy, go sell ice cream, right? And we're not in the ice cream selling business. And so, I think it's a good frame of reference. Obviously, you don't want to make everyone mad all the time, but I think when you're pushing things and you're pushing change, you've got to understand that that's going to be difficult. Change is easy. Transition is difficult. And so there's going to be some people that are frustrated. So it's okay. You're not selling ice cream.